Counterfeits, clones, knockoffs, inspired by. So this terminology gets thrown around all the time in the fragrance world. But what does it mean? Are clone fragrances illegal? What about counterfeits? What about knockoffs? And probably most importantly, how can you ensure you don't get ripped off? And so let's start off by talking about the bad ones on this list, counterfeits. Now, a counterfeit is an illicit copy masquerading as the real deal. These guys carry the exact branding, logo, and packaging of a legitimate fragrance. And usually these are luxury designer fragrances that cost hundreds of dollars. And whoever's making these has no right to do so. Now, this is 100% illegal because in most countries, the counterfeit is violating trademark law. They're pretending to be something they're not. And the risk, besides you getting ripped off and losing hundreds of bucks, is that a lot of times these counterfeits are using cheap ingredients that open up the possibility of an allergic reaction. An example of this, if you go online and you see a bottle unopened, brand new, of Creed Aventus selling for $25, basically 95% off, straight out of China, and everything looks legit. Gents, I hate to break it to you, but your mama was right. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And gents, I'm here to tell you, a lot of these counterfeits are really convincing. In fact, I've heard of some operations taking used bottles, refilling them with a similar smelling fragrance concoction, and selling them as new, putting them back in the original box, sealing it up, selling them on eBay as, hey, I found this in my dad's closet and I just want to get rid of it. Yeah, be careful when the deal looks too good to be true. Now, what about knockoffs? So for me, knockoffs are a broader term. They're any item that tries to mimic a popular brand. So when you see a bottle out there and first glance, you think it is Dior Sauvage, but then you get up close and you see it's Dion Savage. Now, the thing about knockoffs, for me at least, is that they're funny because you see how people are playing with words. Again, these are usually coming out of countries or manufacturing bases that don't really have strict laws, and this is what you would expect to be able to find being sold on the streets in maybe Bangkok. Now, what's interesting about this category is the juice can be anywhere from quality to abysmal. There's really no quality controls here because these fragrances are usually selling for pennies on the dollar. You're talking $25 for a fragrance that if it was the real deal would normally go for $150 to $200. Now, in general, I'm going to recommend you stay away from these, but if you want a good laugh, if you already have the original, and if you happen to be on the streets of Mumbai and see one, pick it up, grab it, have fun with it. The next category I want to talk about, clone fragrances, oftentimes called dupes. These are fragrances engineered to smell very close to the original fragrance they are copying. Now, the big difference in the other two we talked about is clones don't try to claim that they are the original. Now, clones are 100% legal as long as they're not infringing on trademarks or engaging in false advertising. The reason is the formula of a fragrance is often considered a trade secret. And actually, reverse engineering a fragrance is relatively easy nowadays, thanks to devices that are basically artificial noses. They can take a scent, they can take a smell, and they can identify its main components. Now, the thing with fragrance formulations is it's often very difficult to exactly replicate the same fragrance. That's why we see where a brand is replicating its own fragrance. Oftentimes, it has variations in the batches. And if you don't believe me, just go down the rabbit hole of Creed Aventus and all the different batch numbers out there that people are talking about. In any case, this is a widely used practice, especially whenever you have the DNA of a fragrance that works. And yes, there are some smaller houses that this is all they pretty much do is clone fragrances, but there are bigger houses out there, some very well-known ones that have taken existing scent profiles and pretty much copied them with maybe a few minor adjustments. And I'll be straight up, gents, that's why I think clone fragrances are actually a good thing, because a lot of times you get the original fragrance and everyone's going to complain, oh, it didn't last very long. So somebody creates a clone of it, except it's got 2 to 3 times the staying power at half the cost. Yeah, people all of a sudden love this fragrance and they don't stop loving on the original. It's the one that started all, but the clone fragrance, for those in the know, is a great alternative, especially for the guys that put big value on longevity and projection. And now let's talk about inspired by fragrances. Now, these fragrances in their marketing, they usually say they're inspired by, and then they list a popular designer or niche fragrance. Now, all these fragrances are very clear that they are not the original. But if you like the fragrance that this one is based off of, inspired by, you're most likely going to love ours. Now, again, the legality here, similar to clones, is these are perfectly fine. They're not infringing on trademarks. They're not misrepresenting themselves. And if you ask me, from a marketing perspective, it's really smart because most people, when they're out there selecting a new fragrance, they know what they like and maybe they just want a slight variation of it. So this is a great angle to take. It's something new, but it's going to be similar to what you already like. Hey, really quick, if you're enjoying this video, but you want the real deal, you don't want a counterfeit, you don't want a fake, in fact, you want something niche, something hard to find that no one else is going to be wearing, gents, then you need to get over to Max Aroma. When it comes to niche houses, when it comes to hard to find brands, when it comes to you getting the real deal delivered quickly right to your door, gents, it's hard to beat Max Aroma on their service and the selection over on their website. That being said, if you're looking for something from M. Micallef, I've been talking about this fragrance house for a while. As many of you guys know, they're gin tonic. I have said this is an absolute masterpiece, and it is a beautiful spring summer fragrance. It smells, as no surprise, like a gin tonic, absolutely beautiful. Or what about Red Colorado? Another masterpiece from that house. You can smell the pine, you can smell the mountains right in this bottle, and overall, an amazing presentation. Another masterpiece fragrance. And they've also got new and upcoming houses. Check out the House of Destin. And one of my favorite parts about Max Aroma, you don't have to buy a full bottle. You can go over there, you can purchase sample sets from different houses, or you can get a sample of pretty much any niche fragrance they've got listed delivered right to you so you can try the fragrance out before you buy a full bottle. And you know, every fragrance you're going to receive is the real deal. Check out Max Aroma. I'm linking to them down in the description of today's video with the best deal you're going to find on the web. Now, at this point, some of you guys may be asking, Antonio, why would I ever want to buy a clone? Why would I ever want to buy an inspired by fragrance, especially when the original is out there? It's a good question, and honestly, a lot of people out there never do grab any of these fragrances, but if you love wearing fragrances, but you're on a pretty tight budget, one of the great things about clones inspired by fragrances is they're usually a fraction of the cost of the original. So if your favorite fragrance is $200, $500, $150 a bottle, you get a clone for $25, and guess what? It smells very similar. It's got more projection. You can actually rotate. Yeah, you've got the original, but you only wear that on special occasions. I know a lot of guys, they've got clones, they've got variations, that those are the fragrances they wear on a daily basis, and they save the original for those times that they really want to smell good. And to be honest, they're the only person that really can smell the difference. Another reason is some people just appreciate the experimentation. They want to see if they can smell the difference. They know that they go to Fragrantica and, okay, this one says it smells like Creativentus, this one, this one, this one. I'm going to get all of them because I love Creativentus, and I'm going to see if I can smell the difference and catch the slightly different notes that people are talking about. And me personally, I love this reason because what you're really doing here is you're training your nose. And most people don't realize this, but you can, if you actually pay attention to smell, you could improve your ability to pick up notes over time if you're actively taking action to try to do that. And of course, some of the original fragrances are discontinued, very difficult to find. I know there are particular Tom Ford, maybe Dior fragrances that, yeah, it's very difficult to find the originals. There are Creativentus batches that are pretty much near impossible unless you want to spend over $1,000. Well, guess what? You can find the clones. You can find the inspired ones that are based off of those. And again, they're going to be pennies on the dollar. So you can afford to get your nose on fragrances that are very difficult to find for most people. Now let's get to perhaps the most important question for a lot of you guys. How do you avoid buying a fake fragrance? How do you avoid buying a counterfeit? So the number one tip I can give you is to buy from a reputable seller. Department stores, official brand boutiques, these are going to be the safest places. If they sell you a counterfeit and you catch it, they will most likely refund you your money. Now, the problem with these options is you are going to probably pay full retail, so they're usually the most expensive routes. That being said, I have had good luck buying at online retailers. I go with the reputable ones and I make sure that, I'm still paying, a few $100s, but I pretty much have bought my entire expensive fragrance collection because 90% of the fragrances I talk about in my videos, I've bought myself. And when I buy these, I find that unless it's a brand new fragrance, if it's been out for at least a year, I'm able to buy it on the gray market. And this is the way the gray market works, is a lot of these box stores, a lot of these places, they just have excess inventory. So they sell it to a discounter at a very discounted price. And then the discounter goes online, marks them up a bit so that they can make a profit, and they sell them there. But a lot of the big department stores and even some of the official brand boutiques, they need to move the inventory. They need to make room for fresh inventory, things coming in. So they have to offload it, and that's why the gray market exists. The next tip I would say is look at the packaging. First up, is it sealed? If it's not sealed, if it looks like it could have been tampered with, be wary of the contents. Next up, simply read everything on the label, everything on the fragrance. If you catch a misspelling, most likely this is a counterfeit. The next one is to look at the batch code. Now, not all manufacturers offer this, but a lot of the higher end brands, they realize that, hey, people want to be able to check this stuff. They want to make sure it's authentic. So you should be able to go to the Dior website, the Creed website, and you can actually enter the batch code, which is usually stamped on the bottle, and you can see if this is a legitimate bottle. And this isn't always the case, but a lot of times that batch code should also be on the box, on the bottom or somewhere near that. So look for them to match up, obviously, with the bottle, and then go to verify it. Now, there is a website, I believe it's called Check Fresh. I'll link to it down in the description of today's video, along with additional resources if you're into fragrances. I've got an entire community called the Brotherhood of Scent, but when you go over there, you can actually enter these batch codes, and it will tell you when the fragrance was manufactured. And of course, if it doesn't pop up, it could be an indicator that the batch code is actually fake. Another thing to look at is the bottle itself. So when you get into manufacturing of fragrances, one of the most expensive things with the fragrance are actually the bottles, especially if they're custom made. Now, to people, to save money, to cut corners, on a lot of the cheaper bottles, they won't actually look that good. They'll be a little bit rough, or there's going to be imperfections, irregular thickness. In addition, look at the atomizer. Does it look like it's been pinched and taken off? Does it spray correctly? You're going to find, again, with those higher end fragrance brands, they spend a lot of money on a good atomizer. So if you've got a really cheap, scratched up looking atomizer on an expensive fragrance, be wary. Last but not least, let's talk about the performance of the fragrance. Now, the issue with this is that everyone's nose and what they smell is different. On top of that, it's pretty common, especially in men's fragrances and even expensive ones, for them not to have a whole lot of longevity. So understand that if you spend a lot of money on a fragrance, it doesn't last for more than 15 to 30 minutes. It could be that, hey, it's just a lighter fragrance. It's one that is going to use citrus and other notes, which dissipate pretty quick. And it could always be that you actually went nose blind to the fragrance. So if you're really familiar with the fragrance and this is like your 5th bottle of it and you smell it and all of a sudden like it smells very different, that would probably be, in that case, yeah, you maybe want to trust your nose. Now, really quick, some rapid fire questions. Can you layer with a clone fragrance? If you've got the original, can I layer the clone fragrance over it to make it last longer? I don't see anything wrong with this, but you need to understand that those higher end fragrances, they are meant to be enjoyed, and they usually are multi-level, meaning that they're going to have a top, they're going to have a middle, they're going to have a base. In addition, the clone fragrance, even if it's meant or they tried to copy it exactly, it's still going to be different. So it's, it could have a top, middle, and base, but they're probably going to have a different life cycle and a different breakout. That being said, when it comes to layering fragrances, I know a lot of people love it. So if you've got both of them, have fun with it, enjoy it, go ahead and try for yourself. Who knows, it could turn out well, but it also could, just not. Now, how to tell if a fragrance is legit whenever you're buying secondhand. You're going to see a lot of these marketplaces out there where people are trying to buy fragrances that, there's an estate sale, or some guy's just looking to make his collection a lot smaller and is selling his used collection. Well, unfortunately, the only guideline I can give you here is buyer beware. Make sure that the guy that you're buying it from or the gal has good reviews, that they have people that are saying great things about them and they're not all bots. And again, be careful if the deal is too good to be true. If it's a brand new seller, if this person's asking you to do something shady, if you feel you're getting swindled, don't go that route. And again, understand you can try to do everything right here, but whenever you're buying anything used, whether it's a vehicle, whether it's a fragrance, there are so many factors that go into this. I don't know. Me personally, I just buy things new. I save up a bit and I just don't want to deal with that risk in my life. Now, do clone houses use safe ingredients? So any company that's manufacturing a fragrance needs to put the ingredients on the back. I know for me with my fragrance brand, we made them right here in the United States down in Dallas, Texas. And so we have all that ingredients right there on the back, and anyone having it made and bringing it in the United States needs to be pretty clear about everything in there that could cause any type of reaction. But outside the US or the EU or any country that doesn't have really strict laws on this, guys, it is, again, buyer beware. Now, in general, with clone fragrances costing less money, does that mean they're not going to last as long? No, this is actually one of the great things I do love about clone fragrances is most of them were, they're smaller brands and they're listening to the customers. And when they hear people say, I love Creative Ventus, but it doesn't last for more than a couple hours on me. So they amp up a lot of things. You're going to find that most clone fragrances, I find, that are quality ones that are selling well, that have great reviews, it's because they just project and they last so much longer than the original. It doesn't always happen, and those ones usually get panned. So again, look at the reviews, buy on marketplaces that are relatively safe where you have had good luck, and make sure they've got a good return policy. Which is always interesting because alcohol, as you guys know, is flammable. Therefore, anytime you ship a fragrance, it is a hazardous good. But what you're going to find if someone's selling on Amazon, they've got to offer a return policy. And what's funny is the fragrance oftentimes doesn't even get sent back, or when it gets sent back, it's destroyed. But still, if they've got a return policy, you're taking a risk and it turns out to be something you did not expect. Well, it's nice to be able to have that so that you can make sure you're covered. Now, are there legal ramifications for owning a clone fragrance? So if you're out traveling and you've got 50 fake fragrances in your luggage, you could have an issue at customs. But if you're returning from China and you bought a dupe of Creed Aventus that, looks like Creed Aventus, had a misspelling, you probably saw it, but you put it in there, I doubt you're going to have any issues. Except with probably how it smells, because most likely that thing will not smell like the original. And just go out there. I find that buying the original, it's a mindset issue as well, because you feel that you deserve it. I know not everyone can afford it. Yeah, in my opinion, save up, get the real deal, but I know that everyone's got different budgets and you got to end up making the right decision for you. But when you're out there shopping online, if you want the definitive guide, so I made this video a while back, but guys, go check it out. This is the definitive guide to buying fragrances online. I break out all the retailers. I go into a lot of detail how to make sure you always get the best deal online when you're buying a fragrance. So go check it out, guys. Right here, I've got you covered.